I don't know if they actually ever call it a cult, but it's...
They're not a cult. They're a commune.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that. Hello there! It's Friday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever, the only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me as always, he's got 2 tickets to paradise, it's Anthony James.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Now, I almost changed that. I almost called an audible for that and thought, you know what, it's so hot in the United Kingdom and the British Isles and Ireland at the moment that I might have to do something to do with heat, but I couldn't come up with anything in the short period of time between making that decision and actually speaking it into existence. But how are you doing? How are you coping with the heat?
I'm doing okay. Like, obviously I'm from Australia, so everyone assumes that I can cope with it very well, but the human body is the human body. I've been here since I was 12 years old, and I'm not. It's very hot. I said to Indy the other day, people keep saying that we can't complain when it's cold if we're going to complain when it's hot. And I said, you know what? I don't ever fucking complain when it's cold. I like the cold. I'll just put a coat on. See, when you're hot, you can't take your skin off. That's the thing.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you do.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like we briefly had this conversation before talking, but I feel like those arguments belie the fact that there is a happy middle ground between those temperatures where everything's fine. And now listen to me. I know we've got some listeners in America. There's probably some listeners out there who are in like Phoenix, Arizona, who are thinking, you motherfuckers don't know what hot is. And to you, I would say that is correct. It's like 31 degrees over here. And boy, howdy, is that too high. And I guess we have sensitive dispositions, is all I'll say to that.
I can't believe, it was only 4 years ago that I was in America for my honeymoon, and we went to like the Grand Canyon, and we went to San Antonio and Las Vegas, and we went all to these really hot places, and it was over 40 degrees Celsius, and I don't know how I survived, because right now it's like 30 or 28, and I'm dying here.
Yeah, it's too much. It is too much. It's like this is the vengeance of an angry god, I think, is what we're what we're suffering through at the moment. Maybe
Speaking
we deserve
of our film today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with that in mind, I'm excited to announce that we're going to be headed on a lovely summer holiday to sunny Sweden for Ari Aster's Midsommar this week. It's a film I have. I've wanted to do something like this for a while, and I'm excited to finally get to sit down and chat with Anthony about it. We're going to be talking movie studios selling for billions of dollars, or potentially selling for billions of dollars. There's more Indy 5 casting. There's a new Dune trailer out that came out today, which is Thursday, but Friday's when you're listening to this. And a Back to the Feature that'll bowl you over. So Anthony,
I've already got it.
Yeah, I really hope that I had to put that in there because it's great, but it might have just given it away, to be honest. We'll see when we get to it.
I'm going to be honest, if it is a bowling film, the first clue would have had that in anyway. Let's be honest.
Well, I'm going to say no more because I've already put myself in hot water. Let's talk about some gosh darn movies.
Let's do it.
Movies, we're here to talk about them, and I'm going to start with something that Anthony has just confided to me in confidence. That's a double negative. You don't need to say confided in confidence. That's implied in the confiding. Anthony has just confided in me that he hasn't seen the Dune trailer, and that's fine, because I'm going to talk about it for a little bit, just to get everyone hyped up. It's Denis Villeneuve. He is a great filmmaker. I don't really think I've disliked anything of his that I've ever seen, and there are some films of his that I absolutely love. I have read half of the book of Dune. I read it back in 2020 and then got distracted, and I have seen the David Lynch movie, which is very bad, but it's at least got some ambition to it. So I'm really looking forward to this. My question to you, Anthony, is if you had the choice, sight unseen, of picking between a grizzled Josh Brolin as your like kind of military mentor or a bemulleted Patrick Stewart, which one would you go for?
Oh, Josh Brolin, 100%.
Okay, that's
Patrick Stewart. No.
I love Patrick Stewart, but he is in that original David Lynch movie. He has this awful mullet, and it's like, you know, I'm not going to judge anyone. Like, if you lose your hair, it's a horrible thing to go through. I understand that, but like his hair in that, it is full on horseshoe. It's like at that point, like the Hulk Hogan, where it's like at this point, come on, it's gone. It's not coming back. Like you're fooling no one, Patrick.
Well, it's actually his own hair that he hasn't shaved off yet. You know, because
I wonder whether it's...
He went bald quite young. I know that.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's a wig, and then they've just chosen to make his character look as ridiculous as possible. I believe the character's name is either Gunny or Gurney. It's been a while since I've seen that.
Gurney Halleck.
Yes, that's right. But Josh
I haven't
Brolin,
seen it. I've just got the cast in front of me.
That's fine. Yeah, so Josh Brolin is playing this kind of grizzled military man who kind of oversees Paul Atreides' flight from the House Atreides on Arrakis when shit done goes sideways. And I think he's going to be great in it. The casting in this movie looks amazing. Oscar Isaac playing Duke Leto. That's going to be great. Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho. Still the most ridiculous name in any kind of sci-fi movie that I've ever seen. And, you know, Star Wars has some dumb ones, but Duncan Idaho is right up there. But yeah, this movie looks great.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet is obviously going to be playing one of the leads.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a more one-for-one regeneration of an actor as there is Timothy Chalamet? He's just Joseph Gordon-Levitt for me, 100%. He is JGL the second, although he's good. I would say he's actually got more range than Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I think he's better. And I'm going to give him a bit of a double-edged sword here. I think he's got more range than Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but I don't see Timothy Chalamet starring in anything remotely approaching Third Rock from the Sun.
That's true. Or he wasn't in 10 Things I Hate About You. As well as that, I've never seen him on a high wire. Can he walk the rope, Conrad?
What was that from? I don't remember that.
It was a film about walking. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like about him walking the high wire between the Twin Towers. You know the guy who did that?
The Man on Wire. I've seen the documentary they made about it. Did they make a feature film about that as well?
If you want a documentary made into a feature film, JGL's your man.
Why would you not just watch the documentary?
He's also in Snowden, and I'll tell you, in Snowden they actually didn't. Snowden has never revealed how he got the information out of the CIA or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Do you know what they did in the film? In the Snowden film with JGL, they had him put the memory pen inside a Rubik's Cube, and then he was walking through the security gates just like doing the Rubik's Cube. That's what they came up with. Like the most feasible thing that they could make up for Snowden.
I mean, my suggestion was going to be ninjas, and that's more... Is it more compelling than that? Possibly. I think mine would have been more exciting, but...
Have you ever seen a Rubik's Cube player in full go? Full flow?
I have, yeah. They got magic fingers, those Rubikses.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the
and
verb.
Zendaya is always fantastic in everything she's in. So
Zendaya, I believe, is playing the love interest. It's been a long time since I've seen that first movie, and as I say, I've only read half the books. I don't remember a lot of these characters, but I mean, it's got a stellar cast. It's Denis Villeneuve, which I'm very excited to see him back. It's been a long time since his last movie, which I think was his last movie, Arrival. No, it's Blade Runner. Was his last movie. But even that was a while ago. So it's a while between productions, and you know, Blade Runner didn't do that well financially, which is a shame because I thought that movie was fantastic. So I'm hoping that this does a bit better. I remember when Blade Runner came out, and I think it came out the same time as one of the later Resident Evil movies, and they were basically comparing their box offices, and the Resident Evil movie was just like trouncing it, and it destroyed my faith in the movie-going public for a little while there. But nevertheless, if you haven't seen the Dune trailer and you're remotely interested, go and check it out because it looks cool as hell.
Okay.
Now, there was some interesting news this week to do with what we watched. So we're going to talk about Midsommar in a little bit. And the studio that produces Midsommar also made Hereditary and a bunch of other great movies is a studio called A24.
Last Black Man in San Francisco, made by A24.
Yep. They also did Moonlight, Uncut Gems, Lady Bird, and the upcoming Green Knight starring Dev Patel. So there's some news came out this week, just gone, that sometime late last year, they were kind of floating the idea of selling the studio for about $3 billion, which, for reference, Disney paid $4 billion for Star Wars. And I just thought it was interesting to kind of look at the financial landscape of like movie making at the moment. So Disney paid $4 billion for Star Wars. I think that was probably 2013-ish. I think that they did that, and that seemed like a lot. But then since then, you've got and I will say, like, before I go into this too far, like A24, their output has a certain kind of cachet to it, particularly in horror. Like, they're very well regarded. They make very good movies. But between like Netflix paying $450 million for 2 Knives Out sequels, Apple paid like hundreds of millions for the next Scorsese movie, and Amazon have just finished buying MGM and Bond for $9 billion. There is some insane money being thrown around.
$9 billion for Bond.
Well, for MGM, so they get everything. Yeah. But I mean, Bond is kind of the big tentpole franchise that they're getting out of that. It just seems like everything is being further consolidated under like the big streaming service umbrellas now, and I do worry about the direction this is headed in.
It is, yes, I know what you mean. And I was talking to my brother the other day, actually, and like, we're both big fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we're both on and off fans of the DC, and we're really like annoyed with every second DC film that comes out. We just want everything to be cohesive and really well done. And we both just looked at each other and went, are we terrible, terrible human beings for kind of wanting the same thing to happen to DC that happened to Marvel? And I think we are. I think we are is the answer. But it's strange that because these big companies who are buying up everything are actually able to put huge production values into them, it makes the general public want it to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a difficult proposition from the perspective of a consumer, because, you know, I'm the same. Like, you know, I have a Cyclops tattoo on my forearm. Like, I love the X-Men. I don't like those early X-Men movies, or I don't like really any of the X-Men movies they made, with the exception of Days of Future Past. And so, you know, when you're a fan of something or you're interested in something, and the proposition is maybe this company with a track record of doing well in this field, you know, if they could buy the thing that you like and do a good job of it, that's something to be excited about as a consumer. But then, yeah, it's obviously a bit of a double-edged sword, because you're also saying, I want Disney to own everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely had that feeling when they bought Fox, because they got that means they get the Alien license, which means maybe people will start making good Alien movies again. But
it's really hard to tell. And see, the thing is as well is A24 is really good at what they do, and they make great sort of independent style films. I think you can't really call them independent anymore, because A20, I don't know how they model their finances and stuff, but they very much are a big studio now.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be sold for $3 billion, I don't think you can really call them independent movies anymore. But I definitely know what you mean. They have a style that's very much their own.
They have a style where they let their directors and their filmmakers tell the story, and in the style that they want to tell, which makes it come across as independent, because everything feels very different. But also I know what you mean, but like because they are sort of put the way they are, they actually do feel a little bit similar in time, sort of like the long shots and the lovely landscapes and sort of the focus on. I know there is a similarity to them as well. But my point is, if the creators of this studio, if I was like them and I sort of created my idea about what I wanted to do, and I made this really successful movie studio, in my mind I'd be thinking, geez, I could sell this for $3-4 billion.
Yeah,
take $1 billion of that and just keep doing it and just call it something else. Like, start again and keep having these films made. Because if you've got $100 million or $50 million to give to a filmmaker, I mean, they're going to take the money.
Yeah, I actually don't know what the budget of the kind of bigger named A24 movies was like. I can't imagine they're that high though, because I mean they're mainly dramas, with the exception of, you know, well, I would call Hereditary a drama actually, but Midsommar is probably one of the higher budget ones, because there was so much that went into the production of it.
I would be surprised if the budgets of all of them added up was over $1 billion. Like, I'd be surprised, you know.
Yeah, you might well be right, but yeah, it's just something to keep an eye on. I think in terms of the way movie studios are going and shaking out. Like, movie making is more expensive now than it ever has been, at least at the top of the food chain. So to see A24 considering selling up is potentially worrying, but they didn't sell, so I guess there's light at the end of that tunnel potentially as well, because they want to keep on doing it independently. But we shall follow that with great interest. And just to prove that I'm a complete hypocrite, and that I am as much a part of this this kind of capitalistic movie making machine as anyone else, we've got some Indiana Jones 5 news, because I get excited about Indiana Jones movies still, and that is that Antonio Banderas, he's joined the cast now as well. So that's James Mangold directing, obviously Harrison Ford, you've got Toby Jones, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Mads Mikkelsen, and now Antonio Banderas. So that's a pretty good cast that they've got going there.
Zorro crossover? That's what I'm
Oh,
for.
can you imagine the Zorro crossover? That'd be so good. Although they're both quite old. It would be
yeah. That is intriguing to me, actually. I mean, it's got to be better than the fourth one. Like, every single bit of news we hear about it, I'm not going to say Antonio Banderas being added is exciting me more than it was before.
No.
Like, I mean, yeah, like, he's good. I like him. But what I really look forward to is the fact that it's better than the fourth one. It's already better.
I'm in two minds about it, because I kind of want them just a clean break from the George Lucas, like Steven Spielberg, like Lawrence Kasdan triumvirate of like writers, producers, because I feel like those guys lost their way a little bit. Like, Steven Spielberg still has made good movies this side of like the year 2000, but he hasn't made that many of them. I feel like he's kind of been drifting a bit for the last 20 years. And so I think James Mangold is an interesting choice for director. And I think it's impossible for it to be worse than the fourth one, because that was a terrible, terrible movie. So yeah, Indiana Jones 5. The cast continues to grow. They're still not shooting, and I think Harrison Ford hurt his shoulder when they were filming in, I think it was Glasgow, somewhere in Scotland, a few months back. So I don't know. It's going to be set in Scotland.
There's going to be plenty of injuries on that film with that cast. Don't you worry. Hips going and everything. That's depressing to think about. Like it'll be like the. Well, actually, I'm trying to think if I imagined there to be lots of injuries on the set of that last Star Wars movie, because everyone in it was so goddamn old. But like, maybe I've just made that up. Maybe I've just. You got to wrap by 4 so they can get to bed and all, you know.
So they can have their Horlicks.
Yeah.
That's not going to play for anyone who's not from the year. Horlicks is a bedtime drink for old people. I don't even know what it is. Is it like milk and... It's like milk and sugar or something. It's got a particular... I can't remember... What's the type of drink it is? I can't remember. I always just like thought it was a chocolate drink, and then I tasted it one time. I was like, "What the fuck is it?" Yeah, it's almost like bready. For like, it's.
Yeah, there's a word for it, but I can't remember. My head's going to mauve, but it's not mauve because that's a color. But there's something.
Not Ovaltine. Is it Ovaltine?
Ovaltine is another brand of the same thing, but I can't remember. But Ovaltine is also a chocolate drink in other places in the world, and that's what confused me. Because when I came over to the UK and Ireland, because I moved to Ireland initially, Republic of Ireland, when I was drinking Ovaltine, I was like, "What is this crap?" Because in Australia, Ovaltine is literally chocolate milk, like, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. There you go. That's been an interesting dissection of the different hot drinks available. I don't know why we're talking about hot drinks. It's too hot. I am drinking coffee, actually, to be fair, but like I've had so few hot drinks this week. I can't even imagine having more than this one's just pet me up. I've actually had a really upset stomach, Konrad, as I told you. So I haven't been having any caffeine, and it's been like 3 days now since I had a coffee. I don't drink soft drinks anymore. I've had no caffeine in my system for 3 days, and now you know when you have no caffeine for like 3 days, you get to the point where you're like, should I just give it up forever? Yeah.
And then you'll always have it again. But
you'll come back to it.
I'm in the stage now where I'm thinking maybe I'll not have it anymore.
It's a good feeling. If you can go a few days without coffee, it's like the veil lifts from behind your eyes. It's like, this is what it should be like. And they're like, yeah, but I do like espresso though. So unfortunately, this vice just isn't going anywhere. And I'll tell you another vice that's not going anywhere, and another expert segue that is beyond reproach. And that is, of course, the exciting new game show segment on the Best Movie Podcast Ever. That's right, it's your favourite of mine. It's Back to the Feature! That's our, yeah, there we go. We've got the dance. It's not really a vice. I call it a vice because I want to make it seem edgy and cool, but this is really more of like a kind of Family Fortune / Family Feud level of competition.
Yeah. It's good fun. Highlight of my week, definitely.
This is, of course, the exciting game show segment where I have selected a movie from 25 years ago today, and Anthony will have 5 attempts to guess the name of said movie. He will hear 5 clues. Each clue he hears will lower the points that he receives, and please play along at home. Anthony, are you ready for Back to the Feature?
I'm ready.
Okay. You're coming in, so for those of you who haven't actually seen this before, Anthony's coming into this on a bit of a cold streak.
You could say.
On the last 2. Well, you were doing well before, so it's only two in a row, I think, that you didn't get. So we'll see. This is a chance to bounce back, an important one. Potentially
I think I'm going to get this one first time.
A relegation 6-pointer. If I'll be really annoyed if I've just given it away in the pun that I couldn't resist, but we'll see. Okay, so clue the first. Initially a box office failure, which was blamed on the Olympics, this movie became a far bigger success on home video.
Now you got me questioning. So is it because of the Olympics? Because of in the film, it's based on the Olympics and people don't like it? Or is it just because it was released at the time of the Olympics? I think it's probably released at the time of the Olympics. 96, yep, that makes sense to me.
I actually don't know which Olympics that was, 96. That wasn't Sydney, was it?
Right. No, not 2000 was Sydney.
Oh,
I think 96 might have been in America, actually. Or was that one of the... Anyway, it doesn't matter. Someone in the comments, I'm sure, will tell us. I'm sure we'll Google it ourselves after, but let us know in the comments anyway. Okay, so I'm going to guess based on your little pun earlier. If I do get it, I'm going to be happy with myself. If I don't, well, at least,
I'm going to be furious. I'll be furious with myself.
Right, I'm going to go for Kingpin.
Let's chat with the computer. He's only gone and done it, hasn't he? I couldn't resist the pun. I was writing the script for the intro, and I was like, I've got to put a bowling joke in here because it's such a low hanging fruit. And I knew that Anthony had seen it. I knew that he'd seen it. I knew I was playing with fire. When I put that in there.
I mean, it's a great film. It's that Randy Quaid, Woody Harrelson, absolute fantastic film. I think it's worthy of the mention, even if I did get my first 5 points.
It's a great, I
wouldn't have got it from the first clue. Let's just say
we can't. No, but you play the hand you dealt. We can't blame Anthony for taking advantage of the contextual clues scattered throughout the podcast, which hinted as to what it was going to be. It is, of course, Kingpin, so I'll take you through the other clues, but an absolute
I will just say, though, it was between 1 or 2, and it was the year that gave it to me. My other film that popped to mind was, of course, There Will Be Blood, but that was, I think, 2009. So.
I don't know if I'd call that a bowling movie, primarily.
If there's bowling in a movie, it's a bowling movie, all right?
I'm trying to think, what the bowling movies are. Big Lebowski. Yeah, I guess you could call it a bowling movie-ish. So the second clue would have been directors, the Farrelly brothers, Bob and Peter, would follow this up with There's Something About Mary. And then...
That would have put me in the ballpark, definitely.
I think they made Me, Myself and Irene after that, and then...
They made lots of stuff. Stuck on You, stuff. Stuck on Me, something like
that.
Yeah,
Stuck on You is a bad movie. Yeah, that's the one where they're like... what is it? Is it Edward Norton and...
No, it's Matt Damon and your other fella.
Matt Damon
and an older fella.
Not Luke Wilson.
No.
But it's the one where they're like conjoined twins, excuse me. I grew up in an era where they're called Siamese twins, and so I have to catch myself occasionally when I say
Greg
that.
Kinnear.
Greg Kinnear, that's it, yeah. Greg Kinnear is kind of like an older version of Luke Wilson in many ways, or Owen Wilson in many ways. Yeah. So that was a bad movie. Don't go and watch Stuck on You. The third clue, Woody Harrelson's role as Roy Munson was originally going to be played by, and you're not going to believe this, Michael Keaton, a role which Nicolas Cage also turned down. So it could have been Michael Keaton. Imagine that casting call for Roy Munson. Like, think of that balding, plastic-handed failure of a man, and then think of him played by either it could have been played by Woody Harrelson, Michael Keaton, or Nicolas Cage. Like, those actors are nothing alike each other.
That would have been terrible. I'm going to be honest, just mentioning Woody Harrelson might have got me to there without even the bowling clue.
I think you would have got it on the Farrelly brothers, to be honest, because I know you've seen this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so the fourth clue, I mean, if you didn't have it by this point, you would have walked it into the back of the net on this one. This was Randy Quaid's second of 3 movie roles in 1996, this time as the Amish bowler Ishmael.
Yeah, I would have got that. I say Amish.
I think it is Amish. I don't think it's Amish. I think I've just mispronounced that, and I've hoped that no one would notice, but you've drawn attention to it, and
always got to.
Yeah. And then the final clue, I had to put this in there because this is one of my favourite character names in a movie of all time. It is, of course, Bill Murray playing veteran bowler Ernie McCracken, ad-libbed pretty much every line he spoke in this movie, and the Farrelly brothers agreed that they're glad he did because what he spoke was way funnier. So I'm always a bit like reticent to include these because there's like loads of like apocryphal tales of like, oh, that line's ad-libbed or that line's ad-libbed. And it's kind of like, I think it belies a lot of people who don't understand how like acting on a movie set actually works, where you're, a lot of the time you're kind of developing the script as you're doing the scenes. But apparently Bill Murray literally did not speak a single line from the screenplay in this movie. It was just like, he's gonna play Ernie McCracken the way he wants to play him, and Ernie McCracken is a great name for a bowler. Like that is.
Yeah, we're not talking about like sort of the Seth Rogen-y era, Will Ferrell era, where they just do 100 takes and choose the funniest. We're talking about someone who didn't even bother reading what was going on.
Yeah, like he kind of. I mean, I think it's similar to. You probably know this better than me, but I think it's similar to Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they kind of like read the script, get a general sense of like where the scene needs to go, and then they just kind of navigate their way towards that. Whereas like the modern comedy thing is like there's no plot development in those at all. It's literally, we're going to film you saying jokes that are completely devoid of any context to the scene, and then we'll put a funny one in, which I hate.
Yeah, no, I don't like that either. And of course, Chris, My Germs Elliott is in it. My Germs from Scary Movie 2. He also...
yes, he is, yeah.
He's also in There's Something About Mary as well, obviously another Farrelly brothers.
Yeah, he got a good career out of them.
Yeah, and he's in Schitt's Creek as well, if anyone's a fan of that.
He's very funny in Schitt's Creek. I love to see him again. It's always great to see him turning up in anything. Lovely to see him still getting work. But yeah, so, I mean, what can you say? I maybe I made it too easy for him. Maybe I made it too easy for you at home. But you have to play the ball where it lays, and Anthony's absolutely smashed that one for a home run. That started as a golf metaphor and turned into a baseball.
Play the ball where it lies, flying through the air from the pitcher at me. I want to know. Did anyone else in the comments? Did anyone get that from Konrad's pun as well? I want to know.
I'm sure that there's going to be loads of people who are just like, you ruined it, and it's what, like, sometimes it's about the journey you take together, all right? It's not about who wins.
Yeah. It's like it was planned, because I had two 0-pointers in a row, and then I got a 5.
I mean, literally, when I'm writing these out, I've got like dates kind of earmarked, circled on the calendar, being like, that's going to be a good one. And the last 2 were rough ones, but this one was a return to form, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And what a return to form! You've done yourself proud there. A 5-pointer, the first 5-pointer. You're in the history books. You're in the history books now. They can never take that away from you. And what an exciting addition of Back to the Future there. So well done. Well done to all involved. We're now going to swiftly move on from that to our main segment.
Swiftly.
Yes, as swiftly as possible. And that is, of course, to talk about Ari Aster's Midsommar, the movie we're all here to talk about. We're in I can't remember why. So I proposed this like a week ago. We were just talking about things that are on streaming services. Having done a couple of new ones, we wanted to go back and do an older one. And you hadn't seen this before, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I thought I like the tone of the Akira pick last week, and I think we wanted to go with something that was similar, sort of in terms of conversation starters, as well as sort of it took things quite seriously. We wanted to go with a real proper film, basically. You know?
Yeah. So Midsommar, it came out in 2019, which was kind of the year of Florence Pugh, as far as I'm concerned, between like Fighting with My Family, then this, then Little Women at the end of the year. I think that was the year that Florence Pugh really arrived kind of on a global scene.
I think I've said to you before, Konrad, I can't remember if it was on a podcast or not, but I watched Fighting with My Family, and then I went and watched Little Women, then I went to watch a couple of other things, and I've seen this now. And I didn't know until like 6 months after I watched Little Women that Florence Pugh was in Fighting with My Family, because she has like black hair in that, and I don't know why. I just didn't know it was her.
I mean, she embodies the role. She does a really good job of it, and I think she is such a versatile actress. She really is, and she is amazing in this. And it's great to see her break out as she did this year. But basically, she plays the character of Dani in Midsommar, who is in, I think, what you could call a fairly loveless relationship. Her and her boyfriend, whose name I've now forgotten. Christian, that's it.
Very relevant.
Yes, actually, I've not really thought about the.
There must be something there. You don't call a character Christian without knowing. Yeah. But Christian is like he basically, it seems his friends are pushing for him to break up with her anyway, aren't they?
Yeah. Will Poulter of I think it's
Eyebrows fame.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think it's Son of Ramo, or that he was in when he was very young. But he's turned into he's a real shit in this. He's a real shit. His character.
I remember seeing Will Poulter as like a 10-year-old in some Channel 4 UK TV show, sketch comedy. And he was like full of attitude and all. And he was quite cute. And he was like, he was great at what he did. And now he looks the same, just scaled up. He looks very strange.
Yeah, he's an odd-looking guy.
Like he's all right. He's good at what he does. Let's not be too harsh on the fella. Like, he is actually good at what he does. He's a real shit in this film. But I just said to him, like, if I was this director, I don't know if I could cast those eyebrows. I don't know if I could.
Yeah. Imagine being the cinematographer on it. The camera naturally is drawn towards the center of Will Poulter's face. But yeah, so Will Poulter plays Christian's shitty. I think they're all kind of PhD students or something along those lines. And he plays Christian's shitty friend. You also got William Jackson Harper, who most people will know from The Good Place, who plays kind of like the academic of the group.
Like he does in The Good Place?
Like he does in The Good Place, yeah. It's slightly colder character in this than in The Good Place. But this is like kind of like the darker version of Chidi's personality, where he just goes purely into sort of that sort of superior academia. But this group of friends basically want to go to study a cult in Sweden, the Haga cult, which is where, or I don't know if they actually ever call it a cult, but it's
they're not a cult; they're a commune.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to that. But a group of people with like-minded ideas, let's just say, but they want to go. They get invited to go and kind of live with these people in rural Sweden at the invitation of one of their friends, Pella, who grew up among them, and Danny's sister, who is bipolar, kills herself, and Dani and her parents. And this kind of prompts Dani to agree to come with them, basically. So she's grieving, or not grieving, as the case may be, not dealing with the grief in a healthy way. And that's where we find our film. That all happens in kind of the first 10 minutes, and then we're into it. And it's basically about what is going on with the Haga in Sweden.
It's interesting, Konrad, because it does feel like that. When you watch the film, you get there, and all of a sudden, you're just there, and the rest of the film is there. But all that detail of character in the first 5, 10, 20 minutes, before they get there, is really important to dissect for me. Like, I think the idea that Dani has this bipolar sister who she has been struggling with, and every time she tries to reach out to her and help her, she gets labeled the bad guy. Yeah. And we see that Christian is not... The boyfriend is sort of, he's saying, listen, it's just the same as last time. She's looking for attention. And that ends up, actually, no, it's not the same. She has actually died by suicide, and she's killed her parents. It does straight away put this dynamic into it where Christian and the other fellas don't take Dani seriously at all. Yeah. To serious repercustions, you know? Yeah,
and I think so. Ari Aster wrote and directed this as a follow up to Hereditary, which I love. I think at the time of it releasing in 2016, a lot of people called Hereditary but this happens a lot. But I actually think Hereditary might deserve this. Called it one of the scariest movies since The Exorcist. That's the thing that loads of people throw around. Now, you haven't seen Hereditary, so we won't spend too long on it. But it's very different tonally, this. But I think that that first 10 minutes. So I think what is so good about Hereditary is that it is a horror movie. It's about a haunting, a possession. But what it's actually about is a family that falls apart after a tragedy. They fail to deal with grief in a healthy way, and that's the real heart of the story. There happens to be a demon possessing someone, and that becomes scarier and more prevalent as the movie goes on. But at its heart, it's a family drama, and I feel like the first 10, 15... this whole movie, but certainly those first 10, 15 minutes are so brilliantly written. In terms of introducing us to this situation and these characters. And I always kind of joke about this, but I do actually think that this is the way my brain works, that there are two ways that I like characters to be introduced. It's either the opening 5 minutes of Predator, where they're just in a helicopter being the absolute stereotypes that they are. We're just like, hello, I'm the Hispanic one. Hello, I'm the guy with the big gun. Just doing that with some cool music playing in the background, which I'm absolutely fine with. Or you get something like this, where there's so much subtlety to the writing. So it's like you were saying, that conversation. So Dani receives an email from her sister at the beginning. Literally, the first thing we see is her receiving an email from her sister, kind of vaguely threatening to do something, saying goodbye, mum and dad are coming too. And then this series of phone conversations play out between her and Christian. I think another female friend who's never actually named, I believe, but I don't think they actually end up being that important to the story. And as you said, Christian kind of says, "Oh, she always does this. It's a cry for attention, and you validate her by acknowledging it." And I know it's like a simple thing. It's not like knockout writing, but it's just so believable. Like that conversation, I can just imagine happening in so many relationships where there are these kind of barriers between people. That it really kind of reveals something about Christian's character, I think.
Yes, but at the same time, you can kind of, it's like he's going by the evidence of the past that he's been around for, and I think as well, like in situations like that where you're in a relationship with someone and you see their sibling or you see something in, like, it's like obviously this woman's got bipolar, like, that's, I'm not sort of in that position myself, but if he has seen the way that this sister has acted the whole time, that he's been together with her for 3 years or 4 years, 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. I remembered he didn't. But so if he sees it the whole time, he feels like he's an expert on the subject of the sister.
Yeah.
He's negating the fact that Dani has known this girl her whole life. Yeah. And obviously that it's understandable that he has seen the behavior time and time and time again, but he still should trust Dani's feelings towards her sister over his own, because she has known her for a lot longer than he has.
Yeah, I think that early dynamic between them is really kind of played out over the course of the whole movie, where I think one of the things that I really like about the way Midsommar is written is that I don't feel like it ever fully comes down on one side or the other of the Christian Dani dynamic. Like, obviously, Dani goes through some horrible trauma and is not supported by her friendship group or her partner in the slightest. So you feel very sorry for her. But at the same time, with the direction the story goes in, it's like, okay, Christian could be a lot more understanding of this situation. He shouldn't just dismiss this, even though, as you say, he's kind of seen this before and he's probably just grown a bit tired of doing this. But he's also not like the worst person in the world, and I think that's really it's really bold of them to not go with like a really stereotypically shitty boyfriend. Like, they could have, a worse director could have just made him an abuser or something. They could have just been like, I'm just going to skip all of this and we're just going to make him like knock her around a little bit, and that's going to be our shorthand for he's a bad guy. But instead,
could have been Will Poulter's character. He's usually the boyfriend.
Yeah, like the way Will Poulter is played in this, where he's just like chaotic evil character. Like, it's just like, there's no way anyone would ever be friends with this person because he has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. But that, I mean, that could have been Christian. That would have been an easier way to do this, but they don't do that, and instead it's this very subtle kind of back and forth of this relationship, basically showing us how a relationship falls apart. Sorry, were you going to say something then?
I was going to say, yeah, you're right. That it's very believable as well, because the argument that they have where she finds out that he's going to Sweden with his friends, right, and he was going to go, and she didn't know about it. I completely understood him keeping it from her because he didn't want to hurt her feelings, and I completely understood her being weird and not really understanding why he kept it from her. Yeah. And then the argument that ensues from there, where neither of them really knows. Well, Danny doesn't really know why she's annoyed or why she's angry, but the feeling is still there because he still kept it from her. That was so believable, and how how the discussion flipped on.
He turns it around on her to be like, I feel like you're attacking me, and it's just like, oh, that's so manipulative. And I'm not saying he's deliberately manipulating her, but the fact that his. So I think it's fair to say, we won't go into spoiler stuff straight away, but I think it's fair to say that once the tragedy happens and Danny's family are involved in that murder-suicide, Christian was thinking of leaving her already. He is completely checked out of the relationship after that happens, but he's trapped in it. He can't leave because he doesn't want to be the bad guy who, left someone he'd been with for years after they had gone through a trauma. And that argument is such a great example of that, where he so doesn't want to be there that he actually manipulates her into apologizing for him not telling her that he's going to Sweden, and being like, I feel like you're attacking me. And it's such a great depiction of these little kind of like niggling arguments that couples have when it's just not right and they need to move on from it, but they don't for whatever reason. So I mean, Florence Pugh as well. I've said that she is phenomenal in most things. I think she's great in this, and I think the way she depicts her vulnerability is so important for where her character goes in this movie later on. Like, it kind of there are some developments which occur with her character that I don't think would work unless Florence Pugh was able to portray the vulnerability in a way that makes her sympathetic enough to her to kind of allow room for what happens later.
Yeah, I really loved her performance and the journey her character went on. Obviously, I think that there's something to be delved into in terms of this possibly being a metaphor for grief in some way. I think I'm not intelligent enough to really hone it in on the first watch, but I would have to watch it again. But there definitely is something there. The journey she goes through and sort of cutting... I'm not going to say any spoilers, but sort of becoming herself and also sort of getting rid of certain aspects of her life which are not helping her, let's just say.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And I think as well, that the Haga themselves... it's this kind of two-pronged thing where we see her grief and her suffering, and then we kind of see how cults operate, where they prey on people who are vulnerable and offer what feels like sanctuary and protection from maybe unsupportive environments, and then you end up with cults forming.
Communes.
Excuse me. A commune of people who are
family. It's basically Fast Furious 10. This is Fast 10 family. It's all about family.
I mean, we don't. I would like to see Dominic Toretto take on the Haga. I'd be interested to see how that went. He'd probably just drive his muscle car through their big yellow house.
He'd come down with a parachute and his car down into the middle of them and all. Yeah,
it's like Jason Statham just like flipping them off as he guns them all down. Well, I think that leads us quite naturally then into talking about. I just wanted to visit this for a second. I mean, it's true throughout the whole movie, but I think in those early minutes, particularly the first kind of 15 or so, we see the way like Ari Aster lights and shoots his scenes is so good. There's such like a purposeful nature to his work. Like he's a real big fan of like lingering on shots for longer than other directors would, to kind of bring in this sense of unease. Loves a slow zoom, like droning notes in the score to exacerbate tension. I just think there's such a clear visual style to Ari Aster's work, and we'll have to do Hereditary at some point as well, because I think that's even more so, more in like kind of Ari Aster's style than this is in some ways.
What interests me is that I was doing some reading, and apparently the theatrical release for this was half an hour shorter. So this isn't called, on Netflix when I watched it, it wasn't called Midsommar Director's Cut, but I did look up, the Director's Cut is the same length as the one on Netflix. So it's not called the Director's Cut, but it is the Director's Cut as far as I'm aware.
That's
so
interesting.
In the cinema it came out, it was half an hour shorter, and I think to myself, like, what? Maybe it's just those like lovely lingering shots, and like, you know, that maybe there was a whole sequence taken out. I'm not sure exactly, but definitely I liked the patience that the film has. I liked the sort of slow creep. There's certain moments, which we'll talk about when we get to spoilers, but there's certain moments where I noticed what was going to happen very early on, and I had to sit there for 10 minutes and wait for it to happen. Like, there's certain things that I'm like, they sort of set it up in a way. Maybe it's just because I'm going into this knowing it's a horror, in inverted commas, and knowing that there's going to be some creepy crap going on. So that's why I sort of can see it coming. But it's such a slow, painful journey to it happening that I was just really, really loving it.
Like he's an absolute master of that kind of slow burn tension. And one of the best in the business. I'm not going to say what yet. We'll come back to this when we get into spoilers, which won't be too long from now, I don't think. But one of the best in the business at showing you something just off the corner of the screen for a second and letting your mind do all the work with it. There's very few jump scares or traditional jump scares in Ari Aster movies. It's more just creepy shit happening just out of focus or just off to the side. Unbelievable. But I will also say as well, this is maybe you've seen other stuff like this, but in terms of like quite self-serious horror movies, this is one of the brightest horror movies I have ever seen. Like, there's very little darkness in this movie.
Yeah, that's something that I noticed as well. I thought it was really interesting, like, basically because they mentioned as well that there's like only a couple of hours of darkness at night.
Yeah, and they're in really like far north Sweden.
Yeah, and there's one sequence with Josh character, who's played by William Jackson Harper. There's one sequence where he goes out and ventures out at night. But apart from that, pretty much once they get to Sweden, it's all in the daylight, which obviously you're talking about the way that Ari Aster lights his scenes and stuff. I'm not actually... like, the very beginning of the film was lit lovely, but... Yeah. For the most part of the rest of the film, it was all just sunlight.
Yeah. So that, like, I think that's why those first like 20 minutes struck me, because I saw this after Hereditary, and like Hereditary is very dark, lots of shadows, lots of negative space, and then you watch the first 15 minutes of this, and you're like, here we go. Now we're back in business. And then for the rest of the movie, it's like it's all daylight. How is this? Where's the tension going to come from? But I mean, it still manages it. It still manages to be scary.
Yeah, it's a real dichotomy of tone, isn't it? Because you really do have like this real bright setting, and then the whole thing is just really dark and like ominous and creepy, and you know, like, I'll tell you what, Konrad, some of the things in this film which slip to your mind easily because they're so well done if you don't really focus on them. For example, the commune. Now, this isn't really spoilers because I'm just going to mention part of the world building that they've done. Yeah. The commune itself, or the cult, I suppose. We can call them a cult. Okay, we'll call them a cult. The cult itself, I love the way that they build in the idea of them experiencing things with each other. So when someone feels pain, they make pain sounds. Like, all of them around them start like wailing in pain. Yeah. Whenever someone's like happy or whatever, they'll all laugh together. I like that they're doing that. It really added depth to me to like this little cult. You know. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think. The very like kind of open-faced outward nature of the Haga, like the cult members, I think it makes the fact that they put all of the guests at ease immediately, like, make loads of sense. And I think we'll we'll head into spoilers for this because there's something I wanted to say about this. So, spoiler warning: if you haven't seen Midsommar, go and check it out. We're going to start talking spoilers now.
It's on Netflix in the UK, I think, maybe worldwide. I'm not sure. Go check it.
Yeah, but so I think that the way that they present themselves, so that they're all they all experience these emotions together, and they're all very open about these experiences that they are sharing, and I think this it is an illusion of openness and it allows them to manipulate the visitors into staying when they very obviously should be leaving. So when they go through I wrote the name for it down and I've lost it now. At a stupa, the ceremony where people of 72 years of age kill themselves so as not to be a burden on the community, and they throw themselves off of a large cliff, and first lady dies, second guy falls feet first, horrifically breaks his leg, and then has his head smashed in with a big mallet. And even then they are able to talk these seemingly intelligent, they're PhD students, these seemingly intelligent people into sticking around because it feels safe. It feels like there's no dishonesty here. There's no, but already at that point, the net is closing in on these outsiders, and it is this brilliant dichotomy of they seem very happy, it's very bright, they're very open, they're smiling, they're dancing around maypoles, but there's something very insidious at work here that is closing in around these people. Yeah,
I do agree with you. I think that the I can't remember the name of the two 72-year-olds that. This brings up a point of perhaps my first negative point of the film, but it's really strange. Let me know if you think this is a negative. Some of the things were flagpoled a little bit too much for me, to be honest with you. Okay. When I heard that when they're 72 and he went like this, and he made the Undertaker "you're gonna die" throat cutting thing.
Yeah.
Then the immediate next scene is them having dinner and two old people walk out with these lovely robes. I'm just okay, they're dead. So they're going to die. And then we have to wait. Then we waited 10 minutes for it to happen. It happened in a really cool and ominous and really freaky way, I'm not going to lie. But I saw it coming. To be honest with you, whenever the camera panned across the tapestries and they showed the pubic hair and the menstrual blood, and then I'm not even going to lie to you, Konrad, as soon as Christian's glass was a different color of juice, I noticed.
Yeah.
I was thinking someone's drinking menstrual blood at some point in this film, and I spotted it straight away.
I mean, I don't know if I call that a flaw, because I think they're doing it very deliberately. They're not. I don't think they're hiding the fact that these things are going to happen from you. I think it's more they're sewing them in because they're literally telling you what's going to happen. I think that's one of the best things about the kind of production design in this movie as well.
We know.
Well, yeah. But I mean, they know as well. But yeah, I think in a meta sense, we do know as well. So I think if you look at the film opens with a tapestry that literally tells you the entire story of the movie if you go back and look at it, and then you've got stuff like Danny sleeping under this really large painting of a young princess and a bear that seems really, I mean, it seems odd when you see it, and then it's oh, that makes perfect sense. And there's a flower crown around her a photo of her at the parents' house, and like you say, the tapestry that tells us about the kind of love potion process for Christian. So I think I don't think it really deals in surprises so much as this slow revealing of its hand. It basically saying these things are going to happen and you're captive for it. You can't go anywhere. So when the Atastupa takes place, you're not I don't get the impression you're supposed to be surprised by it so much as you're supposed to be surprised by the horrificness of it. They don't drink they don't drink poison and quietly quietly fade away. They jump off a fucking cliff and smash their heads on a rock. And how did you feel about that? Because that's really Ari Aster does a lot of very good gore in his movies, but that would have been your introduction to Ari Aster style gore.
Yeah, that was interesting. I was like, come on, the skull's got to hold up better than that. But I felt like it was a slow wait to get there, knowing what was going to happen, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. And you're exactly right, because I would never have predicted how it was. And I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure that, like, talking about like the commune, the cult, their way of. I'm pretty sure like that mallet exists for a reason, right? That old guy, definitely jumped feet first for a reason. Like, I think he's supposed to get his head beat in. You know,
I think he just was scared, to be honest. Like, the lady just, threw herself forward. There was no second thought in her head, whereas he went feet first, and it was like, I don't know. I think he just kind of wimped out. I say wimped out. Obviously, it's horrific to do that. But, I mean...
Well, it's good to have a mallet for backup just in case.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, they definitely have the mallet there just to finish them off if they need to. It's actually really interesting. Well, I say interesting. Interesting to weirdos like me who like gore effects like that. The gore effect for the hammer smashing, there's a making of video where they show like the heads inflating and then deflating, because they basically do it with like a bunch of balloons in the head so that they could shoot it multiple times. So the head can basically reform and then deform as they hit it.
Oh my god.
It's great. It's such a good gore effect that I'm going to ask you this now. I mean, it might be better suited for later, but what the hell? I'm going to ask it now. Ari Aster has confirmed in interviews that the visitors would have been killed regardless of whether they transgressed or not.
Yeah.
Did you get a sense of that kind of watching this, or did you feel that they were kind of punishments for transgressions?
No, I did get the sense that this was going to happen no matter what. I think that, especially at the end when they tell us, like, how many people they have to sacrifice and stuff, like, 100% they were going to... It was very, very planned. As well as you saying, like, we're a captive audience to watching this. I think we all knew. Now, I maybe wasn't going to predict at the very beginning of the film that Florence Pugh's character Danny would survive. Maybe I wouldn't have predicted that, but I knew that the vast majority of this group are gonna die. 100%. That's how I knew, and it's just how it happens. And the fact that they kept her alive, I'm gonna be honest with you, I was on her side the whole film.
Yeah.
Okay. And I felt a lot of empathy towards her, a lot of sympathy towards her. And as the film went on, and I did feel sad for what was happening to the rest of them. Obviously, I did. But as the film went on, I was on her side and on her side and on her side. And in the end, I don't know. Maybe I'm still on her side. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that is the genius of this movie, is that, I'll say this now. I prefer Hereditary to Midsommar because I think Hereditary is a better traditional horror movie. I think it's scarier than Midsommar. But the genius of Midsommar is you are on her side. I think most people are. Like, you see her. Christian forgets her birthday. He is kind of making eyes at one of the Haga young women. He is stealing Josh's idea for a thesis. Like, he's not the worst person in the world, but he's not a particularly good person either. And all the while, Danny is sitting there grieving, or not really being allowed to grieve, and being pressured into taking magic mushrooms when she's worried about the reaction she might have, because she's still in a period of grief.
Yeah.
And you are totally on her side throughout the whole movie, and it gets you to and it very brilliantly gets you to that final moment where she decides between putting a Haga person into the bear suit when the funeral pyre is formed, or Christian, and she chooses Christian, and you have been brought along through this indoctrination into a cult. Like, the whole movie is showing us how you get indoctrinated into a cult. So at the end, you're like, yeah, probably. But I mean, it's like, if you reflect on like Christian, it's like, he didn't deserve that. Like, to be...
Actually, on that point, on Christian's point, I will ask you this question, right? Do you view what happened to Christian as RAPE?
Yeah, I think so. I think he was drugged, and I think that last 20-minute stretch is very much kind of mirroring the vulnerability of Danny's character in the beginning of the film with Christian's vulnerability. Like, she wins the maypole dance. He is kept completely separate from her. He has no idea what's going on. He's drugged. He is coerced into sex. Okay, he clearly found her attractive, but he was coerced into doing the deed. So yeah,
that's how I read it as well. And the reason I asked that question is because Netflix in the, I don't know if you notice, whenever the show starts, it puts up the top what the sort of warnings are and what the certificates are. And the only warning that it gave for this was injury detail. Right?
Okay, that's interesting.
And that really, like, once I turned to Ema when that happened, I said to her, well, good stuff. There can be no sexual abuse in this film. And then there was. So yeah. I really do not appreciate Netflix not warning for that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I think that's really bad, actually. Like I think they 100% should flag something like that.
They're usually very good at it, to be honest with you.
Because it is. I mean, it is like abusive what happens to him, and it, you know, you can have the discussion about, is it a reflection of his own kind of manipulative, kind of emotionally abusive behavior earlier in the movie? Possibly it is, but it's still that if had he survived, that would have been a traumatic event for him, and the fact that he is essentially reduced to a kind of gibbering wreck because he's been so heavily medicated by the end of the movie as he's burned alive is horrific. But the fact that they managed to kind of make you still see Danny's point of view through all of that is a triumph of the writing. Like, you know, it's literally he didn't attack her, he didn't willingly cheat on her, he was just a quite shitty boyfriend, and he dies for it.
And even though Danny pretty much seems to join the Haga at the end, the Haga are still bad guys in my mind. Like, I'm not on their side. I'm more on Christian's side, of course, than I am them. 100%. It's just that Danny is the one that I feel I went on the journey with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, and I definitely think that's deliberate. I think we are supposed to kind of follow Danny along through this process of being welcomed into this cult. So a slight kind of, I guess you call this a bit of a sharp left turn, but in terms of the deaths in this movie, I've mentioned it before. Ari Aster's ability to just show you something very quickly out of the corner of your eye. So I wanted to mention these in a section where we talk about like the deaths in this movie, because I am a grotesque individual who enjoys very violent deaths in horror movies. The little moments where you see something. So the first one I think you really see is when Danny is tripping on magic mushrooms. She goes into like a shed or something. Turns on, I think she lights a lighter or something, and you briefly see she's staring into like a bathroom mirror. It's a classic bathroom mirror scare. You see something behind her in the bathroom mirror. That's a great one. There's also one which I don't know if you caught. It's very fast, but when Josh sneaks into like the main
someone behind him in the mirror on the wall. Yeah, I saw that.
Well, no. So he's reading the sacred book.
Yeah, taking pictures.
Taking pictures, and then the camera whips, and then he sees someone in the reflection that he thinks is Mark, because it's someone wearing Mark's skin, and the camera whips around to face that person, and in the whip round, you see someone behind him, waiting with the mallet. It's just a great. So if
you pause it, you can see it.
Yeah. It's just it doesn't need to be there, and it's so great that it is. But did you? This is a grim thing to ask, but did you have a favorite kill?
I suppose
this is a safe space. You're allowed to say whatever you want here.
We didn't see it, but I do think that Will Poulter's character Mark being killed was the best one. The transgression that he committed. Obviously, Ari Aster's right. They would have. He wrote it, so he is right. But they would have been killed anyway. But isn't it great that they were able to get Danny into the cult because these transgression happened along the way? Yeah. You know what I mean? Everyone who died had a transgression, basically, except for the couple from England, I think. But so basically, Will Poulter, Mark, pissed on their sacred tree.
Yeah, where they fertilize with the ashes of their dead from the Atta Stupa, like when they're 72, they put the ashes on the tree.
And I 100%, I can tell you now, have met people and been in conversations with people who've realized deep down they've done something fucked up, but they refuse to admit it, and they just pretend they don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I have been in those conversations, and I never wanted to hit someone more than him on the screen there, because he was just pretending not to understand what they were talking about, pretending that it wasn't that bad. Come on, man! Like, just say sorry.
He's such a like, and in that scene as well. I just he's such a dick in this film. Like when literally when they first meet the Haga, what's he do? He pulls out his vape pen and just starts vaping around. It's like, have some sense of like where you are, and like, you know, you don't need to piss against a tree. I'm sure they have toilets that you can go to. Like, you're not at a festival, you know. Like, he's just, but yeah. So he pisses against the sacred tree. And then a young Haga woman kind of makes eyes at him and takes him off into the woods, and the next time we see him, someone else is wearing his skin. So I think it's safe to say things probably didn't end that well for Mark.
He had the night of his life, that's for sure.
The
flayed man. The flayed man. Ema knew exactly. I can't remember what she called it, but there's
the blood eagle.
Is that what it is? Blood eagle. Yeah.
Or with Simon, where he's had his lungs pulled out of his back.
Oh, that was harsh.
Yeah. Well, so okay, interesting. Thing to consider there then. Obviously, Christian is tripping when he sees he's very, very heavily drugged at that point, but you see his lungs moving.
Yeah, I know.
Do you interpret that to mean he's still alive, or is that just is that Christian just being under the influence?
I mean, yeah, fuck, whatever they wanted, whatever. He could still be alive.
He's not doing well. He's not doing well if he's alive.
Sure, he's still alive. Okay, sure. I will ask you a question though, Konrad.
Go on.
On the topic of seeing things, did you feel it was just the heat, or were you also seeing the trees moving?
Oh no, the trees would definitely move, and there's actually when she although it does feel like it, I was a bit like, oh man. This 31-degree weather is making me freak out. No, there's a great bit actually where after Dani wins the maypole dancing competition, she's being carried along as the May Queen. You see her sister's face with the pipe going into the mouth in the trees behind her, which cool. I love stuff like that where they just sneak these little things in that you only notice on like kind of a second or third viewing.
I'm gonna go watch that. I'm gonna go see that again now.
Yeah, it's great. It's just these great little really creepy moments that they're so little, but they just mean so much if you do them well. But yeah, I love like a lot of the kills in this, and I love them because you don't actually see that much. You see the results of them. So Simon and Connie, you don't see them die. You see Simon has been blood eagled and had flowers put in his eyes. You see Connie in a wheelbarrow looking like she's been drowned when they're putting the bodies in the into the sort of ceremonial hut.
That's another thing I love. It's like such a trope of horror, and like these type of going to a commune horrors. But like they had to say it. They were like, "Here, what's that place? That's just a sacred temple. We're not allowed in there." Like, I love it.
Why is it full of straw?
Let's not beat around the bush. We're not
don't worry about it.
That'll come back later in the film.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably end with this to say, have you ever seen The Wicker Man, either the original or the Nicolas Cage remake?
No. To be honest with you, because I've not seen either, my mind goes to Nicolas Cage whenever.
Oh, okay. Well, the original is worth seeing, but I mean, this I don't know this for a fact, but I assume this was heavily influenced by that because that movie also ends with a big fire and a main character in it. Although in that one they're screaming for their life, whereas in this one it's almost worse because it's. Well, actually, no, there are characters screaming in
the Haga ones are screaming.
Yeah, which actually I love as a final ending, and I feel like maybe that is part of the reference to the Wicker Man, but I love that at the point where it becomes real for those Haga people who have volunteered to be burned in this ceremony, the reality of it, I feel like that's the reality sinking in for them. You can live in this kind of blissful cult existence where everything's fine, you can lie to yourselves about what you're doing, but when the rubber meets the road and you have to get burned, that shit fucking hurts, and there's nothing to save you, and all the people outside trying to do their empathy pain stuff isn't going to help the people burning alive inside.
Yeah, it was horrendous.
Yeah, it is a horrendous movie, and one that I very much enjoy. How did you find it then? Any final thoughts on it?
No, I thought it was really great. I do want to watch Hereditary now. it does feel like I'm happy that Ari Aster's only got 2 feature-length films, because this is the type of film where if I see a film like this, I want to go and watch all the director's films.
Yeah.
So I don't have much to look up on. So I'll be also definitely checking out his next one coming out, which we saw has Joaquin Phoenix in it, which sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, that should be interesting. And you know, Ari Aster, it's really interesting actually. In like the year, I think it was 2016, it might have been the year before. But like Aster kind of exploded onto the horror scene with Hereditary, and is part of this like kind of amazing new wave of directors in the genre, along with like Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, The Witch, and like The Lighthouse. And
The Northman coming out soon.
Yes, exactly, and The Northman coming out. So it's just such a good time to be a fan of, I don't want to say like proper horror, because, you know, Insidious and Annabelle and all that stuff, they're very popular. Not really my kind of thing, but some people like them. But this is kind of like, we're getting like prestige horror movies from these kind of directors, and I can't wait to see what else they get up to. I'm going to cough, but right, okay. Well, I think that's going to do it for us here at the Best Movie Podcast Ever, which leads us quite naturally to asking the question, as we always do, which is, Anthony, what is your favourite movie?
Good question. Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Have you watched? Did we get round to watching that in your Marvel rewatch? I can't remember.
Well, I life took over, and I've just been watching whatever ones I want the last few days.
Yeah, that's fine. We're like, it's non-canon, the Marvel rewatch. So just do whatever we fancy. It's actually better to do it that way, because you can skip the bad ones.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite movie is Hereditary. I think Midsommar is brilliant. Hereditary is one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the thing below. And thank you to you for joining us. Please consider giving us a like and subscribing. We are The Culture Cave on YouTube, and we're the best movie podcast ever on podcasting apps, if that is your preferred method of consumption. And we will see you, same time, same place, next week.
And cut.